Hello, everybody. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and today we're talking Star Wars. And I'm sure most of you have already watched the Rise of Skywalker trailer. It just came out this morning, the footage they showed, rather, from D23. And rather than just react to it quickly to try and beat the algorithm, I decided to sit on it a little bit and do some homework today. I wanted to read up on what these theories are, and I really just wanted to rewatch The Last Jedi. I realized I never shared my thoughts with you, and I wanted to sort of really watch it again with some time in mind and see, do I hate it as much as I think I do? Just to beg the question that I asked in the title of, why do we hate on Star Wars so much? I think there's some obvious answers, but there's also just sort of, for my own personal sake, why am I not excited? What is it about this that's happening now, or what was it about the last film, etc., that has made me just lose interest? And rather than have you say, I'm an idiot, I'm wrong, I'm crazy, let's try and have a real dialogue. I hope you can have an open mind as you watch this video, and we can have a civil dialogue down below in the comments. I'll get involved. And I just want us to be able to talk, rather than just saying, no, Last Jedi is a dumpster fire. Let's talk about why. Why was it a problem? Why do people like it? How does it actually progress the plot and the characters? Those are the things I want to talk about. But before we do that, let's just look at this trailer, because the trailer obviously is heavy on the nostalgia. I'm not just going to sit and watch it all. I'm going to fast forward a bit, because the first half is literally just a montage of all the best moments from all the trilogies, including the last couple films. And it really does sort of set the tone for like, yes, woohoo, Star Wars. We know Star Wars. Remember Star Wars? But here we are, finally some new footage this Christmas. The story of a generation, which is true, the original one was, and I think Star Wars has held up, comes to an end. We got dark, red-eyed C-3PO, we got Rey chucking lightsabers, we got Kylo chucking lightsabers, we got another big epic battle that I'm sure Rey will win, surprise, surprise, and then we got this big reveal. Oh my goodness, are you excited, guys? Here it is! Darth Rey. Boom, boom. It's just one of those moments that everyone's talking about, and everyone's like, well, what does that mean? Is that a spoiler? Would Disney just give that up so quickly? It's kind of a weird choice to show that the way they did, so just haphazardly. And it just made me, there was an initial like, ooh, but then there was a more frustration of me going like, yeah, that should have been back in movie 2, Last Jedi is when that should have happened. So it begged the question of, well, what's happening? What's happening with this trilogy? And so I asked the question online because I really want to have a question of, why do we hate on this film? Why do people love it? Why are people pissed? I wanted to sort of get their thoughts. I was organizing mine this morning, and I went and rewatched The Last Jedi, which was an eye-opener for me because, look, it didn't hold up for me. In fact, it was worse. I can see why certain people are fine with it. It's a distraction. Look, I watched this movie 2 years ago, and I was not in a very good headspace. It was literally 2 months after my life was ended and canceled. But somehow during the theater, I was able to escape to a galaxy far, far away and not be distracted by the stress. And so I watched it, and it was something. And then I watched it again in the theaters with some family members and who were big Star Wars fans. And that's when sort of the stuff started getting confusing and I was getting frustrated. And then I sat on it for a while. And then this is my third viewing, watching again. I watched parts of it in between when it came out on video. But then I watched it again in full in a sitting this morning. And it annoyed me. It has potential. It has a lot of potential for me, but case in point, the opening. The opening is kind of really cool. And I'm like, all right, great, let's see this. I let Poe actually is being a badass. And then immediately Poe switches and becomes a trigger-happy flyboy, rather. And it's just kind of crazy how he puts the whole fleet at risk. He kills countless people. And then Leia gives him a slap on the wrist. Oh, I still love you. And then later, to continue that plot thread of Poe is a war criminal and sort of not a great character, he goes against everyone's wishes and murders more people. And then, Laura Dern, I forget her character's name, but sort of really was in the right, and whether you liked it or not, she had an actual plan that she did. I wouldn't have told Poe either, given everything he had been doing. He was overreacting, he was overly emotional, and it just was crazy. Now, she probably should have told him just for the sake of him not doing everything he did, and it would have saved the movie a lot of time and money and lives. So I can see that criticism, but still, I could see why she didn't want to tell him also, because he was crazy. And so then he goes and murders more people and does more risk. And then Finn, who I had so much hope for in the first movie, just is like a sheep. He really is a stormtrooper. He just has goes wherever they tell him to go. There's a scene even where Rose is like, no, this casino is bad. Look closer. They're bad. This is the rich people. They're not good. And then Finn's like, yeah, it was really worth destroying this city. Like suddenly, and you tell Finn what he needs to hear, and he now believes you. He's just a sheep following the herd. And it's just frustrating because both Finn and Poe, they're not good characters in this movie. I'm sorry. And they're who we're supposed to be rooting for and the new, holding the new torch of Star Wars. And both of them have a terrible thread. Finn's about to kill himself, and then Rose nearly kills herself to stop him from killing himself, which could have killed them both. I mean, the whole thing just doesn't make any sense. It's frustrating. There's no real arc there. And then Rose, of course, falls in love with her celebrity hero, new friend. It's just weird. I don't see how any of those three characters really offered anything worthy or new or exciting or an arc that were like, yes, man, I related to that. I personally didn't. And those are my reasons why, because there's just script problems with all three of them. And then we come to Rey. And Rey is another one where she really just sort of follows wherever people tell her to go. But add to that, she has all these amazing powers that she suddenly knows how to wield. I don't want to call her the Mary Sue. I think that's unfair. That's not what it is. But I think the story does need to give her more to do. They need to sort of explain things. She's so obsessed with her parents, and then they don't even really tell us. And then they finally do and say, they're nobodies. None of it makes sense. It's just frustrating because it's like, so why are we focused on her? Oh, so anybody can do anything? Okay, yeah. It doesn't convey a strong character to me. I want her to lose something and learn a lesson. Instead, she sort of just follows everybody what they're doing. And even when thinks she's found her way and she sees the vision, Snoke did it. And then she thinks she's going to turn Kylo. No, Kylo was really leading all that. There's really no moment of hers where she's, in charge. She doesn't turn Luke. Luke finally is swayed by R2-D2 to train Rey. It's just like all of it's sort of a mess. And then get to Luke. I agree with Hamill's criticisms of the character. I don't understand why he's so far gone. I can see why he might have given up, and I think that's an interesting character arc. And the whole idea of turning on Ben Solo is interesting, but we just have not seen Luke for so long. He's not in the first movie. He's gone and sort of supposed to be a master of the Force, and he just goes off into his whiny cave. And then you sit and think about it, and unpopular opinion here, it sort of makes sense to the whole character. I mean, when you go back and you realize you don't like Anakin Skywalker in the prequels, it's because he's basing it off of Luke from the first film, who's just a whiny teenager. And then Luke really never ever amounts to much of anything in the trilogy. If we're really being honest, the Vader plot line sort of distracts us because you're like, oh my God, what a twist, and that's such a challenge. But as a character himself in Return of the Jedi, etc., I don't think he really is that interesting. There's not that much that happens to him. And so now he turns back into his whiny self, and I'm sort of like, okay, yeah, go stay on your cave, dude. I don't need to see this. It's kind of a letdown. And then finally he shows up at the end, and I think that's sort of the saving grace of the film. You're like, yes, finally, what we've been waiting for. And then they sort of do this weird new Force thing that I'm not even saying isn't allowed, but just didn't make sense. It was just frustrating to come out of nowhere, and we're just like, what? Granted, Rian Johnson justified it. He mic dropped and he explained it, and he was able to with sort of historians and the Force knowledge of Star Wars libraries and stuff. And it is apparently something that could happen. But then he just disappears and is dead, and he sort of gives up again, or sacrifices himself finally to sort of take on Solo. So even that was just frustrating. And so the whole thing, I'm just like, there's a couple key moments. The turn when Rey and Kylo are fighting Snoke and the red guards. It's a cool sequence, and I was down for it. But even then, it would have been so much more effective, especially if we're going to allude to this sort of dark Rey, if she had gone with them. Whether she decided to stay there or not, it just would have been a better end of the chapter to go, oh, damn, they really are going someplace new. And so where are they going with this? Who cares? We know now, I guess, there's a lot of speculation that, Palpatine's clones are involved, that maybe he's cloned Rey and that she's a Force twin. All this stuff is sort of not canon anymore, and that could be why Disney replaced it from the EU because they wanted to sort of put it in the new trilogies. But then that could explain that Snoke is kind of a weird, rejected clone body of the Emperor, which is something he did in the Dark Empire comic series. He never really died. And it makes sense if you're going to bring back Solo, Luke, and all these people, why wouldn't you bring back the Emperor? It makes sense, and I'm okay with that. They need to sort of explain some bigger plot or connection to Rey or something for just to make sense, for all the sort of threads to make a quilt at the end of the day, I think is needed. So there's still time for them to get there. I'm not saying it's impossible, but then there's things like this where they introduced time travel in Rebels. And a lot of people are worried, is that going to happen in this, where he saves Ahsoka from Vader in the Rebels scene? A lot of people are wondering, will JJ use this to fix time travel? I know Red Letter Media did sort of a silly prediction video, but a lot of people are wondering if this is thing. Now, this article says it's really hard to do, et cetera, but time travel in Star Wars, that seems a little weird. So that's all the problems. Those are the reasons why we're frustrated with the film. And I think those are fair reasons why we're frustrated with the film. And it's sort of to show Darth Rey, as whatever they're going to call her, is frustrating too, because it just shows Disney's nervous. Why would you reveal that? That's a twist. That's a twist or a surprise, and you just spoiled it. It's either a twist of a misdirection, where it's a vision, or it's an actual twist and she's some sort of emperor being that is out there to do it. Rey's lost twin or whatever the hell it is. Cool thing that we've speculated about. Just because you dropped it, now fans and me, videos like me, are starting to think about, well, what could it mean? What could it mean? And that's the problem now of, I think, why Star Wars it's also hard to make Star Wars films, because how do you please fandom? You can't. We're all speculating. We're all endlessly wondering. And so it's just it's a bigger lens and microscope to sort of combat. So that's the biggest problem here of what's happening. And so I asked this thought on Twitter, and I got a lot of thoughts, and I want to sort of break some of these down because I think they echoed a lot of my own thoughts, and I want to get these conversations going. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter at Andy Signore, because I want to do more of these conversations where you guys get to chime in. This was the extreme of the negative. I'm not saying Jar Jar Abrams and Ruin Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy deserve to die for their metaphorical no-lube sodomizing of the Star Wars franchise, but if we built a poorly shielded rocket, loaded them and launched it directly in the sun, I wouldn't shed a tear. Only reason I liked that was so I could find it. I don't agree with Dredd here. I think he's a little crazy, but it sort of shows how crazy fandom is, how divisive we get. That's one side of the coin. Here's a more rational one. Matthew said something that I had already wrote in my outline when I made this video. When you fudge the second movie so bad, you have to show spoilers for the third as bait. Amen. I just said it too. In concept, this is cool, but it makes The Last Jedi feel like an even bigger waste of time. And we all know from past films how hard it is to buy into a dark side turn over the course of one movie. He's absolutely right. I mean, I didn't buy that at all with Anakin, and it was frustrating to suddenly kill younglings. And so if we're going to say that Rey's turning dark, or maybe that is a breadcrumb they want us to go down, so we're not thinking of the new twist, then great. But it's a big thing they showed that we have to sort of wonder, well, why would she do that? She wouldn't, is the reality. It makes no sense that she would. It just doesn't. The movie, Luke, Yoda even, they all sort of justify that she's not ready. Kylo says, oh, I see you turning and coming with me. But Snoke did it, and clearly what they saw wasn't accurate. Snoke saw, Kylo murdering somebody, but it didn't see that it was going to be murdering him. And both Kylo and Rey saw them working together, but didn't realize it was because of the confusion. And so both of them saw what they wanted to see out of that vision, and I think that's what happened. That's why the visions is the most obvious direction, I think, for Rey. But here's the other side of the coin. Christian says, hyped. Big Star Wars fan here. I see why people dislike the sequel trilogy, but I'm still enjoying the hell out of it. Star Wars is a series you can show your kids time after time, and they'll still be entertained as much as the parents. I'm excited for Rise of Skywalker. My kids aren't as excited about Star Wars. I can't speak for all kids, to be fair, but I see what they're saying. There are a lot of kids who are, and a lot of girls who love Rey. I'm all for Rey. I'm not trying to bash Rey. There's a comment coming up later that's we'll get to that. Star Wars is in constant. This comes from Ruben. Star Wars is in constant competition with itself to come up with ridiculous lightsaber designs instead of just telling what's it called story. Rey and Kylo have fought in every movie, and I believe Rey always wins. So why do I care about seeing them fight again? I agree. It's just you got to focus on story first. And I'm not saying they aren't. We haven't seen the film, but everything leading up to this feels like they haven't. And Last Jedi really feels like they didn't. And the biggest problem in seeing all these things, and the biggest takeaway, and something that I started with my thread, who's leading the ship? Who's steering this creative direction? I mean, Marvel had Kevin Feige, not to just always compare to Marvel, but I think Star Wars fans who are mad at the haters and people like me, yeah, but Marvel's no better. Come on, they relied on nostalgia. Sure, but they had someone leading the vision. There was clearly a through line. Now, they stumbled here and there. It's not perfect by any means, but they did do a pretty satisfying finale. It did rely on nostalgia, sure, but it also wrapped up those characters that we had come to love over so many films. This film sort of doesn't. I don't think they wrapped up Luke well. I just don't. Now, granted, they have another movie. It's Rise of Skywalker. We don't know how involved he is. But even Han Solo, he didn't need to come back. I don't think he did. Leia hasn't really done anything. That scene where she becomes a ghost, Force ghost in space. I mean, what? I mean, I don't have a problem with her being having the Force, but now she's using the Force? Why didn't she use it to kill a ship earlier? They're outnumbered, everything. She used it to save herself? That was it? For what purpose? I don't get it. Ryan Johnson, I feel like, wrote himself into a corner, and the fact that Ryan Johnson's not leading the next one makes me nervous. Because JJ wrote it with Kasdan, and then Ryan took over, and then now JJ's back to try and fix it when clearly he wasn't going to be, let's be honest. So it's a lot of saving face and fixing things as they go. That's not someone leading and steering a ship with a big creative vision. That's to come forward. Lucas had 3 trilogies in mind. Whether you like the prequels or not, there's a through line. He knew where it was going. He had visual things he wanted to do. That's the reality of the prequels. But there's none of that. And there must have been an outline that they didn't follow because they decided not to. And then someone went off script, and then they realized, whoa, wait, why did we go off script? Wait, go back. That's how it feels right now. That's why we fans are and non-fans are angry, because who's really in charge? Here's another one. It won't end as horribly as Game of Thrones, but that's a good comparison because I think a lot of us gave it a pass, and then suddenly we realized, oh no, it really did end poorly. This could happen too. Highest Sage, this was a really great thought. I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, looking every decision they've made, whether it's the treatment of Phasma, Snoke, the fact that they kept teasing the Knights of Ren, and even the lackluster B plot of Last Jedi, really feels like there was no plan and a waste of IP. I mean, totally. That says it perfectly. Huberto says, Rey going full dark side could be the thing that makes this film work. I, for one, would be keen to see it. Maybe Kylo is the Skywalker that needs to rise. Curious to see where it goes, but bottom line is too many things were ruined by The Last Jedi for Rise Skywalker to be any good for me. Look, I think that's where a lot of us stand, and you got to understand, Last Jedi, that's why we're frustrated, because it didn't really give us anything, and it sort of changed things, and I'm not afraid of change, just I'm afraid of things that don't make sense, or characters that do stuff that has no point. And I agree that turn should have happened, because really, who was in even charge of the movie? Did Snoke know? Did Kylo Ren know? Does Rey know? Does Luke know? Does Leia know? Does anybody in this movie know what's happening? I don't think they do. And so I think JJ and they have to fix that. And so this turn of Rey would be something interesting. I got to be honest. And if Ben is the last Skywalker, because he does have Skywalker blood, there's an interesting twist. Let's figure out how they can get there. That's something that could save this, and maybe they will. So I don't want to conjecture too much and go there, but it's interesting to see that could be something that happens. Pablo says, I think you need to listen to a feminine perspective to understand the sequels. People think it's clever saying the Last Jedi waste of time. When through a feminine analysis, everything is quite clear. You were thinking like boys, and I love The Mandalorian. Finally, some good. Think like that. Think bigger. Dude, that's offensive. Why does it have anything to do with gender? Your critique is actually the offensive critique. That just annoys me. Of course, feminine perspective is needed and interesting to hear, but that doesn't mean we can't understand a movie too. I'm not criticizing Rey for saying she just has no arc. Just because you put a female in a movie doesn't make it strong for females. You got to give her a good story. You got to give her a good movie to be in. You got to give her good reasons and backstory and a reason for little girls, everyone to connect to. So I know a lot of females who don't like that film. So that's just really frustrating, the comment there. Here's another one. Tim Dorcas says, I absolutely care. I remember the excitement of seeing the first Star Wars movie in 1977. Since there has been such a rich tapestry of characters and narratives to pull from, and this is what we get. This is the least excited I've ever been for a Star Wars movie. Look, that's the sad reality right now. They have a lot to work up. Solo didn't help any favors. Johnny says, too little, too late. No one is buying this crap. Last Jedi should have ended with her bad. No way this is real. It most likely is a dream vision. And if she is bad, who could stop her? Ben turning good? Or Luke's ghost? Not buying it. It's a fair point. I love this Rise trailer. I think JJ and his team care. Although he's done with Disney Lucas after this film, I think Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni care. And The Mandalorian, I think Bob Iger cares, as I believe it was his decision to greenlight Obi-Wan as the next series. I don't know if any of that's true, but I do believe Filoni and Favreau have different visions and stories and a plot outline of where to go. That's what's key here. Couple more. The second ruined any storyline going into the third. The third is just going to be picking up the pieces of the ruined trilogy. Even if it is a good movie, it's highly unlikely to make the sequel trilogy good. But hey, how about The Mandalorian? Nikki says none of the new characters have any discernible direction with their stories, so a dark side Rey will just be a thing that happens. You could swap the roles out of any of these characters and it would have zero effect on the plot. That's spot on, sadly. That's just what happens. That's Poe and Finn, they're all just, who cares which does, one knows piloting better. They're the same character. That's the problem with this film. Even Rey, what does she want? What's the goal here? To know who her parents are. Who are her parents? Nobody's. That plot went nowhere. So now she's got to stand up knowing that she's nobody. Okay, I guess. It's just, there's just nothing. Give her her moments. Give her a moment where she figures something out, where she tricks somebody. She learned how to lift up rocks at the end. And Luke didn't even really teach her. Yoda gave Luke so much more lessons, and suddenly she just knows everything. It's frustrating. Here's a couple more. The lone fact that there was no coordinated plan for where the franchise was supposed to be going when JJ started rolling on The Force Awakens is all you really need to know to form a conclusion. Oily case, I think true fans view Star Wars as more than just a series of films. They are stories that have now been around for many of our lifetimes. All I want to know is more of the story, whatever that may be. Damn, couldn't agree more. For me, it's not about liking, it's about finding out more and what's next. The story is the story. Dark Visions are cloned, Palpatine-like clones. Doubt they'd ruin a surprise like that in the teaser. That's pretty much all I want to. Plenty of thoughts. You can go to my Twitter and read more of these, but I do want to end there on that thought because I think I'm trying to end positively. Oily Case makes a point. He makes a case, if you will, that look, fans just want the story. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. If you're a Star Wars fan, more power to you. Enjoy your Star Wars. I'm not here to knock your Star Wars. I'm not telling you to not see Star Wars. So let's not make this toxic. I'm just frustrated because I like these characters and it doesn't get me excited, and we should be excited for this film. It starts looking like the same thing. And when I rewatched Last Jedi, I got the trailer even looks less appealing to me. It's just, I don't know where this is headed. And it's like, sure, we don't know, so why are you criticizing it, Andy? But that's the problem. I don't think anyone did. And so they wrote themselves into a corner and now have ended it with a finale that they are hoping will work, but they clearly had a timeline. J.J. Abrams had to get this movie out. Disney's like, hello, get the last Star Wars out. We have 10 more Star Wars at bay that aren't have anything to do with this, so let's get this over with. And that's kind of what it feels like, to be honest. And that's frustrating to me. So while I'm excited a lot of fans are out there, that's why we're hating on it a little bit. That's why we're not jazzed or energized. And I think it doesn't mean it's a dumpster fire. I think Last Jedi has some cool moments. I like Benicio del Toro in it. He's kind of an interesting character, just does give an S. And I think that was surprisingly the best part. All of those characters deserved it. They put everyone at jeopardy for what? On a whim of, we got to do this. And then they didn't really learn a lesson. Poe sort of does like, Luke's here to distract because we got to get out of here, is sort of the turning point, the final act moment for Poe where he realizes, let's not go run out. And Finn, let's not be idiots and just go out and run out and do whatever we seemingly need to do. Let's go hide for once. It's just a weird, that's what we learned, to just don't jump into a fight. Dude, I've seen that on G.I. Joe and He-Man a million times. Star Wars, you're better than that. And with Rey, her turning dark would be interesting. It would make the thing interesting. And we wouldn't see it coming because everyone thinks, she's the female hero. She's a Mary Sue and all this stuff. Like, let's actually surprise people. Let's turn her bad. Let's make Kylo Ren be a good guy. Are we allowed to do that in this politics era where people lose their mind and say, oh my God, you turned the final female hero into a villain? Let's make it a good story. Like, come on. That's what this film should be about. She's still a fantastic character for female role model, like, because she is a strong female in a Star Wars world. That's great. But let's give her something to do. Let's not just make her the hero like we always do. It's boring. Let's make a cool story first so we can then say, man, Rey's that is a badass. You can have a badass villain. That's what this story desperately needs. Someone to care. Someone to turn in a direction where we see it go somewhere unexpected. Have us be like, wow. And then not go, well, wait, I just did that to say, wow, they didn't actually think it through. That's what the problem with this trilogy. And that's why I think a lot of us are hating on it. We care about this franchise. We want to go to a galaxy far, far away. And I hope we can get there. So what do you think down in the comments below? Am I onto something here? Do you think you're with me in anything? Where am I wrong? I want to hear your thoughts. Let's have a dialogue down in the comments below. So please follow up there. And be sure to subscribe. More content coming this week, all week. And please check out my Kickstarter, the new trailer, if you haven't watched it already. I would be very grateful for you to check it out. So if you made it this far, go click over and watch it. And I'll be back with more content very soon. Hit me up on social media if you'd like to be part of any of these dialogues in the future. And thanks so much for watching. Bye, everybody.